Kent Adams here, and welcome to Spokane Talks, where news matters. I've got an officer running for sheriff here today to talk about what's going on right after this.
At Eastern Washington University, biologists are harnessing gut microbes to build stronger bees. Composers are writing music to help us understand how salmon migrate. And geology joins forces with robotics to explore innovative solutions for climate change. An interdisciplinary education that gets real about the real world, that's the new thing. It isn't a tagline, it's a philosophy wrapped in red and white. It is Eastern Washington and you.
Well, welcome back, and I'm pleased to have a new friend of mine, and I say that because I've endorsed you as our next sheriff for Spokane County. John Nowels, how are you doing?
I am well, and thank you for having me today.
Are you having so much fun running for office?
Well, if you enjoy learning new
Yes.
things and
Oh, then
and
you're having a
growing,
ball.
I'm having a great time.
It is kind of new, isn't it?
It is. This is something that you can't really prepare yourself for.
No.
In a short amount of time. So it's been challenging, but I am up for new challenges, and I love to learn.
Well, that's great. I do too. And that's why I love doing this, because I learn new things going on in our community and so forth. Let's start with some of the basics, because you told me some of your background when we met a couple weeks ago. But what is your background here with the Sheriff's Department and others?
Okay. So currently, I am serving as the under sheriff over the investigative and intelligence divisions, which essentially means I have a command of about 100 employees.
Oh, wow.
And report directly to Sheriff Knezovich,
Right.
responsible for all the planning that goes along with running a division, making sure that the men and women of the Sheriff's Department who work for me have all the resources they need, the material they need, make sure they're getting the training that they need, and make sure that I'm aware of the upcoming challenges for law enforcement that come down the road.
You have to be a little psychic, don't you?
You
Really,
do.
to know what could happen here. Do you scan what's going on across the country? Is that part of that studying?
Yeah, we absolutely have to. As a law
Yeah.
enforcement executive, you have to be looking out on the horizon at what the next threats are, what the next trends coming down are. You have to be able to anticipate them, because if our men and women of law enforcement are supposed to effectively address those issues,
Right.
they have to have somebody who sees it coming. That way we have the resources in place. I spent the last 10 months as a law enforcement fellow with the COPS office in the Department of Justice, working on national level policies and items like that. And that helps me anticipate what kind of the next challenges for law enforcement are. Also helps me understand what some of the best practices are
Sure.
in law enforcement, particularly when it revolves around community-oriented policing and making sure that we're in contact with our communities and our citizens, so we know the challenges they face.
Right. And everybody's got an opinion these days, right?
They do. They do.
Of how best to do it.
Correct.
The police and the deputies are too hard or too lenient or whatever, and so forth. What have you learned in doing that? I mean, what do we see happening? Because we're all very concerned, not only here in the Spokane area in eastern Washington, but across the country. We've just seen some cities and areas decimated with riots and other things. How do we get on top of that and on top of the drug problems?
Well, and you've identified two very
Yeah.
hot topics, and there's a lot of diverse perspective, and I think that's key for any government official, any government leader to understand is all of these things that we're seeing in the media are all driven by diverse perspectives and
Right.
diverse perspectives that people feel pretty strongly about.
Yes.
So what I have learned, and particularly in the last couple of years, meeting with members of our community, we do a lot of that.
Okay.
As law enforcement leaders in the sheriff's office, Sheriff Knezovich demands that we have a good pulse on what the community wants.
Right.
He himself has
Where you
a
can hear things
fantastic-
first.
You
What's
do.
going on?
We go out to these meetings and we listen, and this is what I've learned in the last couple of years, and not only on the national scale, but locally.
Okay.
And it's been reinforced as I've been out talking to businesses and citizens on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Is that everybody understands the challenges we have with effectively addressing some of the issues like homelessness, substance abuse, mental health, and we all
Drive-by
understand
shootings, all of those.
and crime, violent crime
Yes.
is a huge topic of discussion right now. But we all understand that there's a diverse approach that everybody has taken. But what everybody's recognized is it's out of balance right now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We all want to make sure that we're safe, that our communities are safe, that I can go to work
Right.
and know that my house is going to be undisturbed while I'm there. I can take my children to the park,
Right.
and we're not going to be subjected to, antisocial behavior, crime, and disorder.
Right.
That's the expectation. We're not, we don't live in that utopian society right now.
No, we don't.
We
don't.
don't go to work and have our stuff always there when we come back.
We
right?
worry
We're
about our
experiencing
wives
crime.
going downtown. We worry about going shopping to a shopping mall.
Correct.
I mean, you just have to see the national headlines.
Correct. And so the job of the sheriff is to, we as police officers and the men and women of the sheriff's office are some of the finest
Yes.
people in the country. I will put them up against any
Yes.
law enforcement agency in the country, and we are the finest.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. And the men and women that work for us are some of the most dedicated people you will ever run into. But the problem we're running into is at the policy level,
Yes.
state level policy, local policy.
Yep.
We're hamstrung in what we can do. And I think some of the support services that are really meant to address these behaviors, they're not funded well enough, they're not implemented well enough, and therefore it gets dumped in law enforcement's lap
Yep.
because the people who are committing these crimes, really exhibiting antisocial behavior,
Right.
they're being left out on the street to really cause disorder to
To try to
law-abiding
survive.
citizens, right? And so what I keep hearing over and over from business owners and from citizens is, where are our rights? Who's standing up for us and our right to be able to go out into public, go out into society, and be safe?
How do you answer that?
Well,
Because that's a very legitimate question.
the fact of the matter is that I believe it's the sheriff's job to stand up and be the voice of the citizens who are concerned about this.
Right. Okay.
Now, that means we support the funding and the programming to go to the appropriate places, right? We have to hold people accountable. And I think part of what is out of balance in our communities right now is there's this perceived lack of desire to hold people accountable for criminal behavior, right? We get told, oh, it's just a misdemeanor. They're a victim of a substance use disorder, or their mental health disorder isn't being taken care of, and they're not at fault. Well, they're right to a degree and to an extent. However,
But they're affecting other people.
they are affecting other
Yes.
people. And I think that's where everything's out of balance for us right now, is we don't want to hold people accountable, so we're leaving them out on the street, but yet we're still not bringing anything in on the backside to help them. And that's what has to be corrected. So the job of the sheriff is to be the voice for the people and say, listen, we have to be able to go out and be safe in our daily activities, and then advocate on the backside. Once we hold people accountable, which has to be done.
Yes.
We have to hold people accountable, but once we do hold them accountable, let's make sure that the services are there. The criminal justice system holistically has to work.
Right. I get Mark Gregory's emails when they go out of news releases and so forth, and I don't know how many, and I get from the police department here as well, but I don't know how many I'll read through, and they'll talk about they had 4 outstanding warrants, or they had been incarcerated for a short period of time, I don't know how many times, or this is their 48th time to be picked up but then released. And we know, I can't think of the case, but the ones where they've let people out of jail and on the way to somewhere have robbed someone else. I mean, there's accountability. We all have it. You have it in your job as you report to Ozzie. As sheriff, you report to all of us, and you will have the accountability to all of us who expect something. And I don't say that in a mean or threatening way. I say that in, what can we do to support the sheriff's department and the men and women who are out there, and I know several, to say thank you to what's going on, because they're doing the job that most of us don't want to do.
That's correct. And I think you articulated the problem very well. And I don't think there is any negative connotation to the responsibility that the sheriff himself and subsequently his deputies have to the public. It's the mantle that we wear and we take up willingly. And it's how it's supposed to be.
Right. Right.
So at the end of the day, we need somebody advocating for better policies. We as the sheriff's office, we have, and as all law enforcement officers in the county, we have the ability to hold people accountable by arrest.
Right.
It's the rest of the system
Yes.
that for one reason or another is not holding people accountable. And we need to start advocating, for different policies so the rest of the criminal justice system can work. And I believe we have a lot of local leaders, particularly county leaders, who really do want to address this, and they do have an interest in, cleaning up our neighborhoods, holding people accountable, and we just have to get to a point where we have commitments from other leaders in the county saying, listen, we can all agree on these values, that we want to be able to have my liberty undisturbed. Right. We believe that because I'm accountable to conduct myself in a certain way, and I mean me as John Nowels citizen,
Right.
I'm accountable to conduct myself in a certain way to not take away from Kent Adams' rights.
Right.
Well, and if I'm held to that standard, everybody else needs to be held to that standard
Yes.
too. And we can all agree, and I don't care what political affiliation you have, is we all have those rights and responsibilities. And it doesn't conflict with the idea that we can help people who do break the social contract, right? We still can come back, hold people accountable, but yet give them the help they need so they can moderate and come back and be productive members of society. So
And I think that's what most of us want.
I believe we do.
Honestly, we want, I used to, and I've said this before, so it's not new. I used to drive by and see homeless people and all of that, and it was kind of like the scourge of the earth are here, and they're nothing and so forth. And then the more I learned about the issue is these people face some things that most of us never do, and they've got mental problems, they've got drug problems, they've got other problems that have put them there. We need to address to help them, not just point fingers at them. And I've learned one of my favorites is the Union Gospel Mission, because they make a difference. I love their stories. I love having Phil on here and to talk about life changes. And it's a hurrah to see that happen. And we need more of that, not just housing and feeding them. We need that during the cold. I get that. I totally get that. And I understand that. But we need more effective programs that your deputies will not have to face them again out on the street. They might face them at Starbucks over a coffee, or see them at the next table because they've gotten their life together. Isn't that what we really want for our fellow citizens?
It is 100% what we want.
Yeah.
I've been saying since very early on in my career, I hope we get to a point where people become healthy enough where we don't need law enforcement anymore. What a gloriously boring career law enforcement.
But we all know
be.
there will be a need.
There always will.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that's when it comes down to individuals getting better.
Yes.
Individuals improving themselves. That is the way out of this societal issue that we have. So we do need to support the programs that work. Drug addiction and mental health problems have touched my family, just as they've touched everybody
a lot of
else's.
families out there.
And the people I know who have successfully overcome drug addiction, and these are people who have been put in prison, like family members, close friends who I care deeply about, where when they were in the throes of addiction, they couldn't see their way out. And these people came from fantastic families.
Yes.
They were raised correctly. And for whatever reason, they get caught in the throes of addiction. They did spend time in prison. They were in and out. And there was periods of their lives where they were not making the best decisions. And drugs really were driving the bus. But just recently, I ran into one of them who she has been clean for a lot of years. She's successful. She looked amazing. And she's made the change, and she reminisced for a short period of time about, how I used to be. And I looked at her and I said,
But
that's not you. It never was you.
It's a win, isn't it? I mean, it really
and
is.
This young lady
Yeah.
is probably one of the most adorable people I've ever met in my life. And I was so happy to know. But you know, she would acknowledge that being held accountable for the crime she committed was one of the reasons she changed. So much to your point earlier is we can't just keep giving people things they need that allows them to just continue their antisocial behavior. There has to be a
totally
consequence
unfair.
that forces somebody into it. So do I advocate for forced treatment? Yes. Now, do we have to make it humane? Do we have to make it, low enough barrier that people can get in there? Yes. But there's going to be a certain part of the population, and we see a lot of them out of the street, and these are the people who are causing problems for businesses, these are causing problems in parks, the people who refuse to take advantage of services. It can't be the most morally correct answer to just let them do it. No. We have to be able to hold them accountable. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm hearing from the public most, and that's the message I have to take to our local legislators, our state legislators, saying, hey, the public is fed up. Me as the sheriff, we can arrest people all day long, but we have to get this backside taken care of so we can hold people accountable. And let's get our streets cleaned up so people feel safe going to work and going to the park.
Yes. Yes. A couple things coming up. One will be we will have 5 new positions on the, not necessarily new people, but 5 new positions on the county commission. And I'll be curious to see their positions as they run for office on this issue, because I know instinctively and just by listening what some of the positions are of the city council on things, okay, and adamantly disagree with a lot of their, let's spend time making sure that they don't go back to prison and all that. Well, maybe they deserve prison for a while. Maybe they deserve an outtake program and so forth. One of the things that I would say my opponents, and I'm not running for anything, but those who disagree with me is whether we need a new jail. And what would your answer be?
We absolutely need a new jail.
Okay.
For a couple different reasons. Yeah. You know, and in a second, I'll talk about what the ridiculous part of the debate is right now.
Yeah.
But I have not spoken to a single citizen yet who has balked at the idea that we need a new jail.
Okay.
For a couple reasons. And I've talked to a lot of people in the last couple months, and even
I
over the
bet
last
you
couple
have.
years. Not a single one has balked at the idea of a new jail.
Okay, good.
We know that the current jail we have is out of date, and it's unsafe for the people who are there.
Right.
It's unsafe for the people who work there.
Yes.
It's not cost effective. It's not cost efficient. So the debate...
It's not doing its job.
It's not. And it's very easy to see what's not. I mean, it's been overcrowded for a while.
Yeah.
And so the debate comes to... who are we incarcerating? Are we incarcerating it? Right. And then whether people are being, and we're talking about politicians here, getting hung up on, well, is there going to be more beds or fewer beds? Well, in my opinion, right, if I'm put in charge of that room, the discussion becomes, who are we incarcerating? Why?
Yes.
Number one priority is are we incarcerating the right people to keep the public safe? You alluded to it earlier. If somebody has been arrested for committing 8 felonies and they've been convicted of 24 felonies before, there's a pretty good chance they're going to victimize the public again. Yeah. I don't want to hear an
You're
argument
adding
about
common sense to this discussion,
right.
You know?
So the question becomes, we're clearly not incarcerating enough of those people to keep the public safe. Right. Can we do it with 850 beds, or does it have to be 1,200 beds? Does it need to be 2,000 beds? The job of the people who are put in charge of this project are find where that watermark is, to where the people that we can leave out pre-trial, that they're going to go out and they're not likely to reoffend, and we can give them the services that's going to help them moderate and be successful.
Let's do it.
What is that number? And then what is that number of the people that we are currently releasing out into the public that really aren't going to change? Right. Once we know that number, it doesn't really matter if we agree on the philosophy of who we're going to incarcerate and who we're not. The number doesn't matter, and we need to get off the idea that, it cannot, if we have 850 beds today, this new jail cannot be 851. Well, I'll be critical of that idea because I don't think anybody knows what that number is today. We have to set the right policy and we have to stick to it and let the policy drive the number.
That's really clear, loud and clear and well stated. I like that. And that really gives me some talking points too, as I go with people. Are you having fun?
So, at first, I use the analogy of it's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
Right? I know how to be the sheriff. And actually, you recognize once you start, working at the level in the organization that I have is you think you know what the sheriff does.
But until you're there.
And I'm here to tell you, today I probably still don't recognize all of the things that I have to do as the sheriff. I mean, you know on paper what it is, but to actually get in, experience it, feel it, I'm learning every day. I'm a huge fan of adult learning. I don't think any of us should ever be done learning. It's something that's been a point in my life, in my entire career. I started 25 years ago.
That is so important. I tell people I was not a great student in high school and college. Okay. I had other interests things I did for the community and so forth. I learn more now and I just absorb everything I can. And I wish I had had more of that back when I was 18, 19, and so forth. But that's okay. I've still got a few years left,
Right.
But that's wonderful. And you learn from a most respected sheriff.
I do.
Who has been honored and talked about throughout the country, not just in the Northwest, but throughout the country. And that says a lot. And he's endorsed you.
He has. And one thing I will say is I'm learning a lot about myself in this campaign. And, and to go back to the previous statement, I don't want to make it sound like I'm not having fun. I'm having a ball. But the only part that I've enjoyed so far is
meeting people
and listening.
Yes.
And hearing what they have to say and talking to them. I very much dislike talking about myself. That's just who I am. So I have enjoyed that. And I get to go out and hear about what's
going on.
Well, I get to hear about what's going on, but I also get to hear about what an excellent job the public thinks the sheriff's office and our men and women are doing, because we have 300 employees and they all do excellent work every day, and I get to hear it. And I wish I could grab these deputies and our civilian employees and take them with me and let them hear how excellent they're
I've said that to both Ozzie and to Craig Meidel in the city. I want to come up with, and I've been saying this for a couple of years, how do we better as a community appreciate what all of you do? And I'm determined that we're going to get there and do something that honors them. I know from Ozzie talking about when there's been a deputy involved shooting of what he can and cannot do. Cannot walk up to the deputy and say certain things and so forth. He has to be, even though that others investigate, I understand that. But what you can and can't do, and that's got to be very difficult to do, especially when sometimes this feels so very obvious. But you have to be whole, Right. And how do we as a community come together for those incidents and others where the deputy had a dangerous chase or whatever? These men and women are out there protecting us, putting their lives on the line. I mean, you don't know when you get up in the morning if you're coming home to see your wife and kids. Okay? And how do we recognize and say thanks? So I'm going to put that in your bonnet to think about. So when you become sheriff, that'll be one of the things that we'll talk about. We'll come up with something in this community that honors those out there. And I say that from, I've got a son who's a fireman out at Fairchild.
Right.
The first responders, it's exciting as you grow up and you want to be one, fireman or policeman and all of that. But they really take on a lot for us. And I think we need to find a way to say thank you. And so put that in your bonnet back there and something we can talk about. We're kind of wrapping up here. What kind of a sheriff are you going to be?
So first and foremost, I'll be an advocate for the citizens of Spokane County. As a sheriff, I'm accountable to the citizens of Spokane County, first and foremost. So I will absolutely advocate for the best interests of this community and keeping them safe. One of the programs that I will implement, Sheriff Knezovich knows I'm going to do it. I've even spoken to our current county commissioners and several of the candidates for these new county commissioner spots. I am going to make an emphasis of reconnecting the sheriff's office to our community in an intimate way. I'm a huge proponent of community-oriented policing. With working with the cops office, I know how it's supposed to be done. Through a very natural way with limited resources, we've become a little disassociated with our individual communities just by the nature of our staffing problems and things like that.
Well, the pandemic hasn't helped either.
That's correct. So what I will do is I will start a neighborhood resource deputy program.
I like it.
I will cheat and steal from the city of Spokane. They have a great program. And the whole idea
Why
is that
why reinvent something?
you don't
Use
have
what's been-
to.
No.
Right, and we'll make it our own.
Yeah.
So what that will look like is we're going to assign deputies, individual deputies, to certain geographic areas.
okay.
It's really more community driven than just just lines. But it's going to be, the idea is that these deputies are going to get to know their community well enough that they're going to know what challenges they face. They're going to become very familiar with all of the services governments offer here, because you were generally the first touch to most government services, unless you're building a house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But all social services and everything like that, they're going to become experts in those fields. And then when crime happens, they're going to have the responsibility of understanding what's driving it. They're going to work with the whole of government to address those issues and really develop personal relationships with those communities. And that foundation of trust is what's going to allow us to understand how to most effectively drive crime down in those neighborhoods. And I think that's going to be a key to, number one, much like you said, how does the community let us know that we appreciate it?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to be developing a relationship with those deputies.
Yes.
And they're going to be more than willing to walk up and say, Deputy so-and-so, whether it's a he or a she, this is what I see going on in my neighborhood. What can we do about it? And this is who I know is doing it.
Yeah.
That's the key to effective
makes
law enforcement. It's our bread and butter, but
It is.
it's so simple.
A friend of mine is Jeff Holy.
Yes.
As you know. In fact, I saw him this morning. He was in here for something else. And I remember when he was first running for office, now 6 or 8 years ago, a representative, and now he's running for re-election as a senator. And I remember him talking about, we got to, what are your positions? And this is something I noted about you too. He said, we have to have safe streets and all that. And I said, no, that's police talk. What I care about is safe neighborhoods. And you said that today.
Yes.
You get it. Because as a citizen, I want to know, as I've left my wife at home and my son, that my neighborhood is safe. The streets, yes, I think I can bounce around and miss the car that goes through the red light and all that. But I want my neighborhoods, whether it's downtown or on the South Hill, I want my neighborhood to be safe. And you said that, and that just really triggered a aha. You
Fantastic.
get it. You really get it.
So when I got my master's degree recently in organizational leadership, there's an author who I became very, very fond of. His name is John Gardner. He passed away, I think, in early 2000s, but he was the Secretary of Education many, many years ago.
Okay, I was going to say, where have I heard the name? Okay.
And he was a professor at Stanford, and there was a quote that he said in one of his books. He said, "I'm seeking the simplicity that lies beyond sophistication." That's a great quote. And when I think of what I just talked about, when I talk about getting back to just the basic community-oriented policing principles, they are basic, they are simple, but that's the kind of programs we need to reinstitute that will work far more effectively than all of these complicated strategies that we try to employ.
We overthink
to address
sometimes,
problems.
don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this community resource deputy program is really seeking that simplicity. And so I think I know it's going to work. It is the path forward for us, and I have buy-in from every elected official because they recognize it too.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yes. Well, and where someone can disagree with you too. Say,
Yeah.
this is going on, and what can we do? Well, maybe this or that or whatever.
Exactly.
Let's start here. John, thank you for your time today. It's good to really get to know you, and I hope our viewers get to know you too. If they have questions or want more information, let me guess, you have a website or a Facebook site.
I do. I have both a Facebook site.
I was going to say you better
I
these
have
days.
both. That's correct. So the website is www.nowels, Nowels, for sheriff.com.
Okay.
And then the Facebook page is Elect John Nowels for Sheriff.
Okay.
You can find out all about me. You can also call me on my cell phone. It's 509-954-8869. Ask me any questions you want about me, my past, my history. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about my qualifications.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we didn't cover that your listeners might want to know.
Yeah.
I grew up here in Spokane,
Yes.
lifelong resident of Spokane, graduated from Central Valley High School, started working for the Spokesman Review at 11 years old.
Oh, gee.
Delivering the morning paper, and went through college with a wife and 2 kids out at Eastern, and also working full time doing that, driving a truck for Central Premix. So I've
Oh
had
my gosh, yes.
it was
You are a
great
local
career.
boy, aren't you?
I am a local kid, and my family is here. I
Yes.
have deep roots here in the
Yeah.
Spokane community.
You married local too, didn't you?
Married local, celebrating my 30th anniversary this year.
Oh,
So,
wow. Good for
yeah,
you.
we'll get to spend our anniversary on the campaign trail. So
Oh, I'm glad I'm not doing that to my wife
Right,
at
right.
54 years, so yes.
and four adult children here in town, 1 grandson. We're very, very fortunate, and we've never run into a place that we thought was better than Spokane. So here we are.
So true, so true. I moved up from Los Angeles 45 years ago, and when people say, where are you from? I'm from Spokane.
There you go.
Okay, I just am. Okay, my kids are here. 1 kid in Bellingham, but other than that, they're all here in the area. So, John, thank you again.
You're welcome.
To make sure everybody knows, I have endorsed John, and I think you're going to do a good job.
I appreciate
I'm
it.
looking forward to working with you, and you're going to continue with doing the sheriff's report here
Absolutely.
after.
Yeah, you have
December.
my guarantee.
Okay.
It will continue.
Actually, we're going to expand it. The public doesn't know this yet. We're going to expand it with you as sheriff, and we're going to expand it with Craig Meidel as police chief, and start doing some police chief and sheriff programs. Ozzie gets busy once in a while. I know the police chief does too. This way we can have more programs, and we've got an exciting new sponsor of the program and everything else coming on board too. So we're looking forward to helping our community understand how they can help you, because you and your deputies out there. And please, any chance you get, to say thank you to all of those that work for you and with you and Ozzie and the rest of your staff there, because we do appreciate you.
And we understand that. And one thing I would ask is if any of the public, any of your listeners want to say, hey, thanks, I recognize what these people, send us an email.
Okay.
We will make sure we get it to them.
Okay.
They do need to hear it.
Yeah.
They know our elected officials in the county have been, and in the city of Spokane Valley, have been extremely supportive
Yes.
of law enforcement. They've been very overt in stating it.
Yes.
They have also backed it up financially
Yes.
recently.
Yes.
So that's great. But it never hurts for people to individually reach out and
Yeah.
let deputies know the great work they're doing. It means more than they would ever know.
Well, I remember telling Craig Meidel that when I pulled in one day to the parking lot in the back, there were a couple of cop cars and they were talking to each other and so forth. Obviously had pulled somebody over before or whatever. And I didn't know what to say, but I went, and they did that back. Do I do that driving once in a while too? Yes. And I think that's a little simple thing that all of us can do to show support out there.
I agree. And
just thank you.
And 100%.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that every time that happens, every single one of those deputies and officers gets a little bit of a rush of adrenaline to know that there are people who appreciate them enough
Absolutely.
to actually make that gesture. It is invaluable.
Yeah.
So keep it up.
All right, great. John Nowels for County Sheriff, Spokane County Sheriff, a long-term Spokaneite. Thank you for coming in today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks,
All
Ken.
right. See you next time.